Helping provide some insight on all this back and forth is Isaac Cohen. He's president and CEO of Inverway, a Washington-based business development company. He's a former director of the UN Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. We keep hearing the last couple of days a lot of reports, business people coming in and testifying at the USTR saying, please don't go forward with these tariffs, that they end up actually being a duty or a tax that they have to pass on to their customers, that it's self-defeating. The message doesn't seem to be getting through to the White House, though.
Well, the private sector in the United States is very concerned about this issue because it's going to complicate many of the things that are performing well in the U.S. economy. You know, this idea that you're going to transfer to consumers the cost of these taxes because tariffs are taxes, you know, contradicts the whole, well, main objective of the Trump administration, which was lowering taxes. So they lowered taxes in 2017, and now we are seeing taxes increased as a result of this confrontation. I am very hopeful about the conversations that have started here in Washington because the only way we're going to resolve this is through dialogue.
You say you're hopeful, but I've heard a lot of analysts saying, I want to get your thoughts on this. The problem, it doesn't seem like the administration has any concrete policy objectives. There really aren't any goals. It's just a lot of stuff out there. If China knew what they wanted, they might lurch towards it and say, okay, we'll meet you sort of halfway, but nobody seems to know, and it's a moving target.
Absolutely. The reason is because the administration is divided. There are two very clear factions within the administration. There's a protectionist faction, and they are in the White House, in the USTR. And there is a more open free trade faction, which is led, I think, by the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin. So it encourages me a lot that the fact that these conversations took place at the Treasury Department, because that's a place where you are, well, seeing some kind of reflection on free trade. And the person who led the conversation is David Malpass, who is the Undersecretary of the Treasury and who happens to be an economist. Because economists look at these problems in a different manner than lawyers, for instance. Lawyers are always concerned about the worst case scenario, you know. Economists look at the benefit of the whole economy and the world economy.
It's interesting, David Kelly, who's a global strategist for JP Morgan, wrote this blog entry not too long ago. I read it. I run a trade deficit with Costco, and it seems to keep growing. I go with my wife. We buy all this stuff at Costco. We can't stop buying this stuff. Costco doesn't buy anything from me. And he said, you know, the Americans need to look at it like that. Everybody goes to Costco. They shore up. They buy all this stuff. They don't want to go to Costco and pay more for those items in an effort. You know, he said the problem is if you go to Costco and you're buying it on your credit card, which he said the U.S. is doing, and that's where the trade deficit is. Do you think that people understand that?
That's an economist thing, because what he's saying is the deficit, or if you buy more from somebody, that's not bad. You're probably getting something that you want at very good price, you know, and that's very rational. But when you look at trade relations from the point of view of the balance and the negative balance, which is the case, you know, the way the White House is looking at it, then you find a zero-sum game. For somebody is gaining, somebody is losing. But in international trade, everybody wins. And that's what's missing, you know. So this is, I go back to my point that the fact that David Malpass is leading these conversations is encouraging because he's an economist.
One final question, briefly if you can, how long does this last?
Well, let's hope it doesn't last too long. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a political cost to be paid by the administration in the next legislative elections in November. Because most of the producers that are being hurt are agricultural producers, and they are voting. And they're probably going to vote against the Republican Party.
Isaac Cohen, thanks so much.
My pleasure.